you out on a date with a girl when you're like 23 and they say, what do you do for work? She's working in marketing or something or, whatever they're doing. And you're like, oh, I'm restructuring a company that's in bankruptcy. And they're like, sure you are. It's like, don't you have somebody else to do that for you? You look like a kid.
Top leaders, meaningful conversation, actionable advice, bulldoze complacency, ignite inspiration, create impact. Produced by Southwestern family of companies. This is the Action Catalyst.
Hello and welcome to the Action Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Adam Outland, and today we get to interview Anthony Constantino. Anthony's the co-founder and CEO of Sticker Mule, one of the world's most popular custom printing companies, and also the founder of Stimulus, the world's first 100% ID-verified social media network, which replaces advertising with giveaways. We're going to talk today about the ideas of innovation when getting into a startup, some counterintuitive ways to build a business, as well as the modern day ID verified social media outlet he's creating. So looking at just your whole story and background, you're a teenager and you're thinking about your future like most teenagers do, not quite expecting that what you'd find yourself in is this massive sticker business that you build that kicks off everything, right? What were you initially thinking about with your future?
I don't have an issue with stickers, but I didn't start this because I had some infatuation with stickers. I just wanted to get into manufacturing. I wanted to get on the internet. I was sort of a screw up as a kid, I guess. My brother was like valedictorian, top of his class. I was sort of a screw up, and I found my first success in life in sports. And even in sports, I was a disaster. I wrestled, and I lost my first 30 matches. I was terrible at, everything. I wasn't really great at school, but I wasn't terrible. I eventually just decided my last year of high school to become good at sports. And I ended up becoming, I think, tied for best finish in my high school. And I said to myself after that, if you can learn how to become good at one thing, why not try to, it was my first experience becoming good at something. And so then I went to college and, I wasn't the brightest light. I said, why don't you try to figure out how to become good at college? So, and, I'll be overly honest, I got into a conflict there and ended up getting semi-kicked out. And I failed upwards and went to RPI, which is a phenomenal school. Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Okay. So it's competitive with them. It's competitive with MIT, but it doesn't have the brand recognition. But I believe it's was founded before MIT. So it has a long engineering history. It was the first time in my life being around really, really, really smart people. So I went to my first school, did well. For the first time ever doing good in school, went to my second school and got totally humbled by the intellect of the engineering crowd there.
Do you know what you could trace back like the switch point to for like wrestling?
The switch point was reason I said I could do that was there are state champion kids that are only 13. Some kids come right out of seventh, you're in seventh, eighth grade and first year in high school are already state champions.
That's right. Yeah.
And I said, if a 13-year-old can figure out how to become a state champion, even though I've sucked, I can figure out how to get to the finals. I was one of, I think, only two kids in my school's history to make it to the finals of our regional tournament.
It's so interesting to just hear these early stories because I don't want to superimpose this on you, but I feel like the proving to yourself of something that happens as a teenager. I'm going to set a goal and see if I can hit it. And maybe one of the first times where you really did something that required an intense amount of labor.
Yes. Oh yeah. Tremendous labor. The other thing I learned through that is my first experience, like reverse engineering success. I looked at a kid that was number one in the area. I remember he did an interview. One of the best wrestlers in our area was like, and he did an interview with the paper and he explained how he trains. And I said, Jesus, I thought it was just, people think people are just magically good. And so I was like, well, this kid trains so much harder than me. So I started, emulating his training and magically all of a sudden I'm at that level too. Later on in life, I do the same thing. Yeah, you can reverse engineer business success and educational success. You look at what are the people that are, instead of just saying this magical powers, why is somebody good and I'm not good? Like, what are they doing different than you?
Yeah. And then it sounds like maybe a repetition of that a little bit when it came to the academics in college. You're like, cool, if I can reverse engineer wrestling, I can reverse engineer.
Exactly. Started studying. I lived in the library. I did a bunch of things I never did before. I got really out of shape. I got comically out of shape because somebody introduced me to Code Red Mountain Dew.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I started drinking 10 Code Red Mountain Dews a day. I didn't realize so many calories. I gained 40 pounds.
Whoa.
It was unbelievable. I was like in phenomenal shape my whole life, and then all of a sudden Code Red Mountain Dew, and I was like, my friends saw me. Are you okay? No, what do you mean?
Well, we won't have Code Red Mountain Dew sponsor this episode. So
I don't know if Code Red Mountain Dew still exists. They probably got other flavors now.
So, all right. So where does Sticker Mule come into this?
Well, in full transparency, I didn't actually graduate. I had one class left to take, which was computer programming. And I didn't take it because I don't usually tell this because it's such a long story. But, I had family business that went into a, near bankruptcy situation in college. So I spent a summer of college sort of digging it out of that. Even, I don't know what the hell I was doing, but I figured some stuff out and got out of college and then went back into a terrible situation again. So I spent a good chunk of my life pre-Sticker Mule working in a dysfunctional family business. I don't usually talk about this, but my dad started the company, passed away when I was 8 years old. 12 years went by without him being present, and it became totally dysfunctional. And so I had to do a restructuring. Wasn't a pleasant situation. I spent X number of years of my life doing that, and then towards the end of that, sort of stumbled into the idea of creating Sticker Mule. The idea for Sticker Mule came out of frustration of growing up into a manufacturing company where traditionally manufacturers don't have control of sales. So part of the problem was we were very dysfunctional. And the other part of the problem was there was no easy levers to grow sales. It was purely we didn't sell, we made stuff. And we had a very small sales force.
Right.
And then we had partners that sold the stuff.
Yeah.
And so if the partners, we had partners go bankrupt. We had product lines die, very small sales force that you couldn't really do much with. And so, I had no control over sales. So it was kind of dysfunctional. Sales were plummeting. I had no levers to pull. And I got frustrated with that situation. I said, it would be very nice to be on the internet where you could connect manufacturing directly to customers. I couldn't make any guarantee. It's like you want to have an agreement with your factory staff that if you guys perform, everything will be good for everyone. But there was no in traditional manufacturing, that guarantee doesn't exist.
You're doing that while you're working through college simultaneously, or that's kind of
I started that in the middle of college. I stopped because people think it's easy to get somebody to run a company, and it's not, especially a failing company. The talented CEOs of the world don't want to go join a failing company.
Business. Yeah.
No, they don't.
That's like your trial by fire of learning a tremendous amount.
In the time, I hated it, but it gave me a great foundation. I wouldn't, people like Sticker Mule became so successful because of this experience, unfortunately, but I hated it. Everyone was out, all my friends, and I couldn't relate. You're out on a date with a girl when you're 23, and they say, "What do you do for work?" She's working in marketing or something, or whatever, starting illegal, whatever they're doing, and you're like, "Oh, I'm restructuring a company that's in bankruptcy," and they're like, "Sure you are." It's like, don't you have somebody else to do that for you? You look like a kid. Luckily, the employees all supported me. I think they felt badly for me. Whatever. I had to go. I've always was friendly with them.
You hate this whole thing that you had to do, just go through. But somehow you think it's a great idea to start a business from scratch.
I never found it stressful. I was frustrated that I couldn't have the same fun that my friends were having. Aside from that, I didn't have a lot of faith in us being able to stabilize the company. And I had great relationships with people, and it was a small community. I wanted to have a backup plan for people, for myself, but also for people that I had developed a relationship with. The ownership structure of Sticker Mule and my family's company was different. And eventually, I think 5 or 6 years into Sticker Mule, we ended up buying that company out and just absorbed all the people.
It's really incredible. You always wonder what makes people tick and motivates people, because I'm hearing that one of the big things that made you tick was employing people and that you care about.
Yeah, I put a big premium on loyalty, both directions. I'm very loyal. And so, it was funny in the beginning, I was like, well, I got to have security for the people I care about. And then at a certain point, Sticker Mule grew, and I said, well, now I'm just creating security for people I've never met before. It's not to be weird, but I'm initially I just want to be, I was my number one, and I used to meet with people and I would say, what do you guys want to, I'm talking in front of my factory workers, supervisors. I said, where do you guys want this company to end up? And they say, isn't that up to you? And I was like, well, it's going to be it's going to get crazy if we want to keep growing. And my goal was just to make a nice life for us.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that. But I would say if you guys want the thing to grow, we can do it. We can figure out how to do it. But I want to know that's what you guys want, because it's definitely two different worlds. Smaller, calm situation versus staying in a high growth situation. At the end of the day, you learn in business, you have to keep growing because, I don't know who said it, but so you're either growing or you're dying. So you have no choice. I thought I had a choice. Oh, let's just stay small and calm and, flirt around, just screw around and have fun. In the long run, it doesn't work that way.
real quick, but just for our audience, like what is Sticker Mule? What does it do? And then jump into like what kind of started putting gas on the fire when you got that up and running.
I say, Sticker Mule, I'd say internet's favorite custom printing company, easiest way to buy custom printing. We started with stickers, but we sell up to 10 products now. And, our original innovation was just that we made it incredibly easy to buy. So when we first started and we started growing, people said, oh, you must be destroying the competition. The reason they say, well, how are you growing so fast and you're not eating into competition? I said, because the majority of people that buy from us never bought before. Because what happens is people can't remember this, but, prior to Sticker Mule, prior to like the internet, it would take forever to buy custom stickers. And so the only people that were buying were businesses that really needed them. But when it's all of a sudden a 20-second process or 30-second process, though, the market just explodes because people go, geez, maybe I'll get stickers of my cat. Maybe I'll get stickers of my whatever. My kid drew something or some other product like magnets, buttons. Yeah, when you make it easy to buy, all of a sudden, you lower the barrier to entry and people start buying that never would have considered buying before. So that was our big innovation was, just making buying incredibly easy.
Was it just word of mouth? I mean, on the marketing and sales side?
Oh, the marketing. Yeah. So, my co-founder said, if you do more things, you can make more mistakes. So I call it just brute force marketing. Just, try, don't get too attached to ideas. We try to estimate our ideas up front, like whether we think they're going to be good or not, and focus on what's a simple way to do it. Things that are easy and seeing high impact, you should do first. And things that are difficult and seeing low impact, you should avoid.
How long would you give it?
All of a sudden didn't work. I just, for conversion rate, I looked at like the number month over month. I was like, if our conversion rate's moving up and to the right, we're obviously making good decisions in terms of design improvements.
Yeah. Sometimes like people make things too complicated. So I think simple is better.
Somebody asked me one day, so what's your business strategy? And they said, well, you don't seem like you have one. I said, yeah, I don't know. I just go up the ask. I said, yeah, we have one. It's called Get Better Every Day. And they said, what the hell? They're like, what's that? I go, well, I remember working in a dysfunctional company. And I said, you've probably worked in, everyone's worked in dysfunctional, most people, not everyone, but have worked in dysfunctional companies. I said, inside Sticker Mill, I said, do you see a lot of dysfunction? They said, no. They said, I said, everyone for the most part comes here every day and tries to do something useful to help make the company better every day. And I said, that's not normal. Did you experience that? And I didn't experience that in my prior life, my prior job. And I said, and they said, no, you're right. Like, there's generally a great degree of dysfunction inside most companies, but our secret was we don't have a dysfunction and we just come to work every day and everyone's constantly trying to do something productive. When that's your attitude, things just tend to improve.
Yeah. Well, this is called the Action Catalyst.
I'm right on target.
You're right on target. So yeah, I mean, how do you actually cultivate like an action-oriented culture? What do you propose, or what do you tell your team? Or
your first 5 people will define the culture. So you have to be very careful with your first, for a department, you have to be very careful with your first group, right? So if you're going to make mistakes in hiring, they're going to just kind of set the tone for new people, and they're either going to indoctrinate new people, right, or they're going to expel new people. Like they're going to, once you have a core unit that just think this is the way they think, and somebody comes in that doesn't fit that mold, they're either going to convince them to join, or they're going to call me and say this person shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So if you have a department where it's like a mixed bag, right, where you have like your first 5 people, 2 are good and 2 aren't in line, and you try to build on that, it's confusing because everyone's like, there's no agreement about what our values are, right? You have 2 people with this set of values, 2 people with another set of values, and one other person that's got another set of values. Yeah, it doesn't scale gracefully on its own. You can't just like walk away. So, and then we ended up developing a core set of principles for how to guide the organization. And then we started doing principles for every department. Principles are 8 to 10 rules about what your decision-making framework should be. Our fundamental principle that we kind of have in all the docs is move fast because time is finite. We really put a big emphasis on that. But like an example, like a person like I say, safety is more important than quality. Quality is more important than productivity. If you're running an unsafe manufacturing environment, people are getting hurt. That's ridiculous, But assuming you can have a safe environment, which you should have, you need to have quality before you worry about productivity. I just put stuff like that in play. I say manufacturing judge people primarily on the basis of attendance. Yeah, having principles is a tool we use to scale the organization. So like as we started growing, I had confidence and people saw that these principles work and we have success with them. So why not follow them, right? So like in manufacturing, say judge people primarily on the basis of attendance, which isn't something everyone realizes to do, because in manufacturing and manufacturing environment, people judge people on the basis of silly stuff. Like this guy's can't perform a job. This person's slow. Actually, it's a big problem. This person is slow. Well, rather than like picking on people for being slow, why don't you, if you're judging people on the basis of attendance, why don't you think about how to improve the process so even the slow people can be faster?
Great way of thinking.
And everyone adopts that, and people start thinking differently. And then I just got confidence that I don't have to keep repeating myself.
Yeah, really cool. So today, one of the things that you're building is Stimulus.
Yep.
What is Stimulus? How'd you get to that idea?
Yeah, I was very anti-social media. Eventually, I said, why not? We'll explore social as a channel. I didn't see it doing anything, so I set a goal for us to get to 1 million followers on Twitter. I said, I don't think it's worth anything unless you get to 1 million followers. So we come up with a plan we come up with a goal to get there. And we started succeeding, and we were growing 20, 30,000 followers a month, real followers. And we were one of the dominant brands on Twitter. Through that process, as I got deeper into Twitter, I was just like, this place is horrible. I just saw all the bad design, a lot of the design decisions they made were pushing people in a bad direction. So I realized Twitter's sort of a game. And the goal of the game is to become the most popular player. They didn't even know they're playing a game, but they're playing a game. And they're trying to dominate the game. And the game is bound by the mechanics of the game. And the mechanics of Twitter were you have to be nasty in order to succeed. So all these people that want to succeed in the game. Now, there's a lot of people that didn't even know they were playing a game, that weren't even trying to win. They're on there. They're floating around. But the people that decided to play, had no choice but to play within the game mechanics of Twitter. And the game mechanics of Twitter were you have to be nasty. This was one of the main tools to get attention. And Twitter baked that influence into their software. It's particularly destructive for people in tech who tend to spend a lot of time in front of their computers and don't interact, tend to be maybe more introverted. The world isn't Twitter. So yeah, heavily influenced by this. And they had everyone convinced that the world's terrible. And I saw all the levers that they had built into their platform to make people behave poorly. And then they're blaming the people for behaving poorly. And then they're saying, we got to, socially execute people. I mean, they were just chopping people's heads off. This guy's got to get off of Twitter. He's bad. This one's got to. Well, you set up the game telling people to behave badly. And then all of a sudden you're removing people. You got to go. This one's terrible. He's beyond the pale. He's got to go. He was trying to win the game.
Yeah.
I don't like to just talk. So I was talking to our CFO, and she said, if you feel so strongly about this, why don't you try to create your own network and show people that things can be better? And this conversation was before Elon Musk bought Twitter. I didn't know he was going to step in and do that. So, we had to build it from scratch. We funded it ourselves. We had to get to the domain, spin up a team and all that. And the idea was to show that you can remove some of the negative design decisions. People aren't as bad. We wanted to better reflect society, and we wanted to show that this is a game. And if you don't want to turn into Twitter, you have to give people positive levers to succeed at the game. So give them a lever that's positive. So we decided to integrated giveaways. It's going to be our positive lever. If you want attention on any of your posts on Stimulus, it works a lot like Twitter or Facebook. Giveaways are very popular on Twitter and Facebook, but they're not integrated. So you have a fraud problem and you have a trust problem. But on Stimulus, they're fully integrated. And since we launched, we don't have bad behavior. It's crazy.
Yeah. I guess as a user, you've got a lot of experience with Twitter and what they do well and what they don't. And that's valuable. But I mean, I get the connection between what you were doing prior to Sticker Mule and then rolling that into Sticker Mule, because you like that background of
that was my world. Yeah.
Production played a role, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what a leap. I mean, Sticker Mule to like total tech networking company. I mean, what made you feel, so I get the purpose and the why behind wanting to do it.
Yeah.
What gave you the confidence you could?
I only created one company and it succeeded, right? And people thought I was nuts when I did that. People mocked it, Sticker Mule in the beginning. It doesn't sound sensible now. But, I want to do more. Time's limited on Earth. I wanted to do something more challenging, more interesting, and see if I could do that. I tell people, do the most impactful thing you can do. And so, when I scan the world, it's like we think about that. What's the most impactful thing I can do with my time? But this was, in terms of what my skill set is and what my resources are, I couldn't think of anything better to do with my time. I didn't expect Elon Musk to step in and buy it. And now all of a sudden I'm competing with, a totally different person. What can you do? He actually has a lot of similar ideas to me. So everyone on Stimulus is verified. That was a fundamental thought. And Stimulus, everyone's so obsessed with privacy, and I get it. But through the majority of human history, privacy wasn't a thing. If you interacted with another human, you did it face to face. People knew who you were. They could find you. You interacted with your neighbor. You couldn't put a mask on and go insult your neighbor. And, and it's the fact that we didn't have privacy for the vast majority of human history is why we had, much more civil interactions. All of a sudden you take, people are obsessed with privacy, you take away privacy. And you got people with masks on going on harassing. So you don't even know people are on Twitter harassing or on Facebook, They harass their neighbors, their friends through fake names. You could never do that if you had to actually do it face to face. The obsession with privacy it's good. I get it, but it's giving additional attention to people that operate under their real name is the right thing to do.
100%. Yeah. It's like road rage, right? It's easier to like cut someone off if you don't see that there's a human in the car and you just see.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I get that. Well, that's cool. So stimulus, it's gaining attention. It's, the premise is creating a more positive environment.
Yeah. Reminding people that humans naturally interact in a pleasant way with each other. And so far we've proven that. I say it's sort of a, innovation lab for social media. Like our goal with stimulus is to do things others aren't doing. So if you look at all the other Twitter clones, right? Because there's this new revolution in social. We had this idea before people went nuts, but like all the other Twitter clones are just bad imitations of Twitter. There's really no innovation. But yeah, we're trying to be an innovation lab. We're trying to do as many things that other people aren't doing. So we were the first network to do integrated ID verification, mandatory ID verification. We're the only network to have integrated giveaways. First network to do image polls. No one does image-based polls, which is pretty cool. I don't know why no one else doesn't do that. First network to build spam filtering, so you can turn spam on and off, so you can see your spam or not see your spam. And eventually, we're going to have the ability to just like email, have your own personal spam filter, because spam is in the eye of the beholder. So you could add through the process of saying, I don't like this, I view this as spam. You could start having your own definition, building your own definition of spam through machine learning and stuff like that. Just like the way email works. Yeah, that's our goal. Keep innovating, keep doing cool stuff, influence the other networks in a positive direction. And we wanted to remind people that at the time that we started stimulus, and I think the world starting to shift again, hopefully, people were very convinced that the world was dark and horrible and that social media was a reflection of real life, and that life just sucked. And that was our goal, is to show people that it's not that way.
It just is a way to kind of summarize some of this conversation too, and it kind of bring it back to you for a second. You've learned a tremendous amount, just an insane amount about business, it sounds like now you just lean into whatever you're doing and unpack it, and you're very interested in how things work. Mm-hmm. What would you say, knowing everything you know now, to like an 18-year-old or 17-year-old version of yourself? Like what advice would you give the young version of you, having gone through this whole path?
I tell kids in general, try stuff, try more stuff. Don't be scared to try stuff. There's not a huge separation between you and people that seem fancy or seem super intelligent. Like, people think that there is, but there really isn't. Like, when you're a kid and you're like, I don't know, you think I'm this person, and then the successful people are just like superhumans.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's not the case. You do have to figure out what it is that makes them successful and take on those qualities. But like, once you figure it out, and so I have this problem, like whatever I do in life, I try to like downplay whatever I do. So I started boxing. I'm 4-0 in boxing, 4 knockouts, 2 in amateur, 2 in pro. But even that, it's like, once you figure it out, it's not that hard. I mean, it's really not that hard, but you do have to study the sport and figure out what are the fundamental characteristics that make, like, most people in boxing, and it's like a lot like business, everything's there's a lot of similarities between whatever you do, but like, they're just in there doing it, and they just think they're going to win because they're going to win. And it's just not that way. You're not going to win in business just because you think you're going to win. You got to look at what are the qualities that make businesses successful. Well, so I should figure out how to do those things too.
Biggest lesson for me, and I think for our audience that I'm distilling, I mean, there are a lot of micro lessons and thoughts and strategies, but just be a student of the game, right? And just learn whatever you're into, and you can figure it out. And I think that's really human, that anybody can gravitate to that lesson and say, I can, that's something worth implementing in my life and business. So a lot of cool anecdotes just from your life. So I appreciate you being open about all that.
Thank you. I guess this was actually one of my the best podcasts I've done. So you did an incredible job with your questions on hearing it. Yeah, thank you, Adam. That was awesome.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast, and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.